On the next one, you ask, what is love? That's like the hardest question ever. You know, you can point to it, but you can't define it, because it's the perfect trying to experience itself, and it can only experience itself through a finite expression, because it's all it is, and all it is can't experience itself unless it self. If you look at the golden mean spiral, that's self-awareness. You know, it's the spiral contemplating upon itself, or folding in upon itself, to be able to look at itself, but at the same time it's all it is, and it's really looking at itself from a point on that spiral, right? But at the same time always being point zero. And love is the spiral. Love is the phi ratio is an infinite number, and that's the infinite expressed within. And they always have to limit the number, right? It's just an analogy, but they have to limit the number in order to write it down, 1.618, right? But it goes on forever. So there you go, that's love. It's love, but it can only ever be seen from a limited perspective. You can't possibly really see love, the real love. You can't see it because it's just infinite. And that's why I say infinite, because every vibration is knit in that phi ratio. And it's almost like when you're creating a fractal, right? Like, I've just thought of this lately. The beginning equation is what creates the initial form. So the Mandelbrot has an equation, right? And then, you start off with let's say you start off with a shape, and then you apply an equation to that shape. So that's the transform, right? And it's almost like the whole of the universe, and I'm not even gonna say almost, this is how it actually is. The whole of the known universe is spheres, or it's really torus. It's really the phi spiral, which is the infinite, right? This is really hard to explain. It's the phi spiral, which is the infinite. And when that's observed, it collapses into a torus, which is like a feedback mechanism. It's got the vortex going in the top and coming out of the bottom. It's like that feedback mechanism. That's what self-awareness is, and that's what we're doing. So that's the asking and the solution, right? And so if you can imagine everything, like the structure of space, when it's divided, it always appears as it always appears as a sphere or torus. And but it's really vibration. If you look at those things I put on my wall, it's really a wave, a sound wave that's being spun to make it look like a sphere, right? But it's not a sphere, it's just an illusion. And so it's an interpretation. How to get into this? Oh yeah, so the whole universe is just a sphere. It's just to keep it simple, a sphere with an equation that transforms that sphere into an object. So you have an idea, which is the transform. It's like an equation, and it transforms the sphere into whatever the imagination, whatever the field is holding. So you're always redefining the love that you are, right? So Source, Todd has an idea of himself which is creating a fractal. And every time Todd changes his mind, the fractal updates instantly. And the fractal exists everywhere. And it's almost like the field that Todd has and the field that your source knows itself as, if they're out of sync, if they're, if they're different to each other, Todd thinks of himself as limited, which you never have been. You've always been this whole perception, which is the whole fractal. If you think of yourself as different as source, then that's when you feel the negative emotion. And the negative emotion is just an indicator saying that you're attracting something different than what you've asked for. And I mean, the whole universe works for you, You just have to know yourself as all it is, and then that's enlightenment. How do I expand and how do I hold on to the feeling of enlightenment? You can't. That's like trying to perfect the eternal imperfection. Source is eternally, like, it's perfect. Like, existence itself, the process of existence is perfect, but the expression of existence, by definition, is never. It doesn't want to be perfect, and it's source. It's the infinites. It's who we are. It's who we are. It's that passion, that never-ending passion for the infinite to know itself, that compels existence to just happen eternally, forever. But it's imperfect. God, that's hard to explain. But just imagine Todd is always a whole perception happening, and the only reason that Todd would ever be out of sync with love is if he thought he was fragmented and separate from anything that he sees. Because every sphere in your field is you. It's exactly how you imagine it to be. It's exactly how the transform that you've set up creates the fractal, And the only reason it's going to create a different fractal is because, well, first of all, the indicator that it's creating a different fractal is the emotion. But you're still creating a whole fractal, and if you can realize that, it's almost like just that idea of being whole puts you in sync with love, because love knows only wholeness. You really just have to maintain that knowing, but you can't control it. You can't hold on to it. But just by knowing, you are holding on to it, because you're it. You can't, as soon as you try and control yourself, you've just fragmented. It's like it's futile. It's like trying to squeeze Jello. It'll just seep through your fingertips,